Good morning, friends, and welcome to my 10 a.m. live stream, which is not officially a 10 a.m. live stream, but it sure seems like that's what it turns out to be most days lately when I've been doing it. So, what are we doing today? Well, today, in the course of animation, things come up that you need to do, especially when you're looking at doing what I'm doing, which is crowdfunding your show. And as I've looked at the sort of tick list of the things that one needs to do surrounding a crowdfund launch campaign, I'm looking at things like my copy of the art of Avatar: The Last Airbender, for example, where you're seeing things like this, where you sort of have like these promotional posters and things that you create to sort of create the to support the transmedia world you're trying to create around your show or your project. And I have a lengthy list here of things that I need to do or want to do to support this effort, and it's increasingly very clear that this will become a full-time job, and for a period of time, most of my work is going to be about promoting the crowdfund more than continuing to make forward progress on the show. The good news is, of course, that the shows are very well far along, and so a little bit of a break in that process is really no big deal. So what do we have here? Well, this is as I say, in this process of beginning to talk about or think about promoting a crowdfunding campaign. Okay. Again, I seriously apologize. Basically, everybody's gone now. Um, that was pretty irritating. So what just happened was I had to kill OBS 27, ultimately had to restart OBS 26, and okay, so I'm gonna do. Hey, Clash Tunes, thanks for hanging in there, buddy. It's really strange that it seems to have definitely gotten worse recently in terms of these dropouts. So again, I apologize. Okay, so what I'm doing is on my other screen, I'm actually going to go ahead and see if a switch over to Firefox actually makes a difference. Because this is really, you guys should not have to sit through this. This is crazy and a bit ridiculous. So I've got to do a couple quick steps here in order to be able to launch Firefox, and I'm going to give this another try. So hang on one second. Okay, so that's interesting. Unfortunately, the stream does seem to be doing okay at the moment. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an experiment now that is probably going to take a couple minutes. But what I'm going to have to do is kill the one browser and see if we get a more reliable connection on the other browser, which is Firefox. But for the moment, things seem to be working fine, so let's stick with this for the moment. What we're doing is we're creating a promotional video for actually the YouTube channel for my film distributor. Okay, so we're creating a promotional video, you sort of welcoming you to their channel, and in the context of that little 30-second promotional video, there's a brief part of it where we are briefly talking about Salt and Light as something that's coming new from BlendedPlanet Productions. Okay, so a couple things I'm looking at right now. I want to kill that preview. So this is the Tahoma project, and this is the current state of it. As I say, this is fairly brief, but what we have is the characters of Tianara and Mel having a brief verbal blurb about Salt and Light being a new production from BlendedPlanet Pictures. So what we still need to do here, of course, is ink and paint, and their lips aren't moving, so putting in some lip sync would probably be well advised as well. So now, having done that, what I was going to do is just go ahead and run a speed paint of the earlier part of this and kind of talk over it, because I did the pencil test last night and I did record it, although I didn't live stream. So let's go ahead and turn that on, and again, hopefully the hopefully the connection isn't going to be stupid for some reason. So the good news from OBS Studio definitely seems to be that the whenever it does disconnect from OBS 26, it seems to last 10 seconds pretty consistently. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and roll this. And so I had actually done the pencil test for Tianara, and so what we're looking at right now is essentially an 8x speed up speed paint of doing the second half of it, which is adding Mel into it. So I'm kind of just watching this in real time, and one of the things I did differently on this video is I went ahead and animated it at 12 frames per second. Because it's being intercut with live action video, I thought it might be well advised to just make the animation a little more smoother, so it sort of sits together in the mix better. So for simplicity, when I started drawing the character Mel, I figured I'd draw his head kind of large, and so I could maybe draw it a little more accurately, and then just shrink it down, and then that would serve. Okay, and I actually just paused that speed paint so we didn't miss too much of it. But again, if the disconnections with OBS continue, I don't see any other option, unfortunately, than to try actually killing the live stream and reconnecting with Firefox. But at least things seem to be working okay at the moment. So as far as animation goes, you can see what I was doing here is Mel's just kind of looking at Tianara because she's doing most of the talking. It might be worth mentioning that the platform that this promotional video is for, you know, their main audience is really women. How much RAM do I have? Oh, dude, I've got way more than enough. Let's get like 32 gigabytes of RAM, 12 CPUs. The machine is a monster. It's an absolute monster machine. So the connection problem has nothing to do with the machine. It is using the GPU, but I mean, you could be compressing with the CPU and it would still be a pretty modest hit. So basically what you have here is we're just kind of getting the timing and the motion Mel. So she basically says, I think she says, including an all-new animated adventure series called Salt and Light, and then he just says, yeah, what she said. You know, that's basically all that is. Because again, this is basically a tag that at the end of the day will probably take about 8 seconds toward the end of this 30-second promotional video. So it's all very, very quick. The way it opens up is that we're on there live on camera with probably on green screen, so that there's footage behind us from the movies that I've written and directed that are available on the streaming. Well, they're kind of available everywhere actually, but if you go to the Encourage TV YouTube channel, you can find the movies there as well. So this is essentially, again, a promotional video for Encourage TV's YouTube channel to help them, just kind of help them welcome people to the channel and encourage people to subscribe. Right. So, again, the big difference with this little bit of animation compared to usual would be that it's 12 frames per second instead of 8. So, basically, that's really about it. That brings us up to date as far as the content of the animation part of the promotional video. So I'm going to go ahead and kill Vegas on my other screen. And so now that leaves us with this. And again, there's basically a few things we need to do. Ink and paint, and then lip sync. And whether we're going to have... I actually think it would be pretty cool to not have a background behind them, but just overlay them again against the background footage of the movie. But I don't have to decide that now, right? I've got I have a 30-second script I wrote for the promo that we'll probably, as I say, we'll shoot the talking heads on a green screen. We'll be laying in movie footage behind it, and then at the right time it'll actually wipe, and then both Natalie and I will turn from human beings into cartoon characters. Say our little bit about Salt and Light, and then we'll turn back into human beings, and you'll see the Encourage TV logo into the screen, and that's basically the promo. So it's pretty quick. I mean, 30 seconds. So that leaves us with a little bit of work to do, which again is ink and paint. So to keep our workspace clean and uncluttered, let's just go ahead and mute Mel for now and move him downstream. And then I'm going to hit the B key, and then we're going to start ink and paint. And so one additional step would be to maybe make Tianara pretty light, so that we're not being distracted while we try to do the ink and paint. Now, one thing I want to think about, however, as I'm cruising through this, is going to be what aspects of the art should maybe, like clockwork, about 10 seconds. So I didn't really say too much while on the other screen I can see OBS. I see the little icon turn from green to red, so I know when it happens. So here we've got our hand moving. That's about it. And then of course lip sync on top of that. And then we got a tween here to a new pose. As you can see, really her eye or her face doesn't really change. There's a little bit of deformation in the garment around her shoulders, but basically it's really one drawing of her face. So I don't think we need to try to use other animation tools for this, and probably we don't need to break it into separate levels either. I think it's just a matter of doing some cutting and pasting so that there's no good reason to redraw her face or this upper part of the garment, which I'm actually going to ink right now. Once we have this in here, there's really, that section right there is probably never going to change. So I am going to turn my smoothing on a little bit though. So let's zoom in, and just for fun, I'm going to flip it so that I can, because I'm a right-hander, so it'll just be a little easier to kind of see what I'm doing, I think, if I... Okay, so I actually was watching some documentaries yesterday about Alex Toth, or Toth. It's actually pronounced Toth, I guess. Um, Comic book artist, but and he was known for designing Space Ghost for Hanna-Barbera, and interesting guy. But I always thought that Alex Toth, he also had a pretty strong role with Johnny Quest as well, if I'm getting my facts straight. And I like the thing I like about Alex Toth was the thing people talk about a lot with him, which is simplicity. You know, he really was good at reducing the art down to a few lines, and I think that's kind of a cool thing. So I'll flip this back around again, make sure things are staying balanced, and I think we'll do it kind of the anime way where her eyes actually overlap over the clothes a little bit, even though of course that doesn't really make a lot of sense in the real world. So, and I'm gonna leave her mouth off, and then as you can see the little the little red dot on her forehead that I always forget what the darn thing is called. Looked like it was a little bit placed incorrectly. So let's give her some nice, generous, I don't like this down here. Irises, I was going to say. But yeah, that's probably not too bad. Let's flip it back, and then the N key to get us, oh actually I guess I had it flipped, get us back to actual size. So this is the real size that it will wind up being rendered. So okay, so now let's just kind of get her other clothes in here, and then as I said, once we go forward with the animation, we're going to be doing a fair amount of cutting and pasting actually. So yeah, I actually had another conversation with an old friend who had a very important role in my filmmaking career, perhaps even to the extent that if it wasn't for this one guy, it might not. I might not have ever had a filmmaking career actually, because this particular guy. You know, he saw my very first film, which was pretty bad, back around 2009, I think it was. But he, you know, he kind of saw something there and believed in me, and it was because of his role that I was able to get a deal to produce 6 made-for-TV movies, which is really unusual. I mean, people that are trying to make it out in LA, would drool over an opportunity like that, So it was an unusual opportunity where the guy just kind of believed I could deliver the goods. And the interesting thing about that, actually, what actually happened was they contracted with 2 people, myself being one of them, and the other guy, whatever he delivered apparently was so bad that they cut him loose and killed the contract like after 1 movie, whereas I I was able to hang in there, and and it was one of those deals. I've told the story before, so sorry if you've heard it before, but basically I made 2 movies that were, they were okay. They were okay, but they were definitely low budget movies. And after doing it twice, and this is the truth, this is what really happened, is good morning, Maria. I was just really sure, because I knew they had cut the other guy loose, right? So I was really sure that if I don't figure out a way for this sort of second tier cable network to make some money from these movies, they'll probably cut me loose too, because their platform, which back then was sort of a cable network, as I say, was not doing very well, and frankly, it never did do very well. When they turned it into a digital streaming platform, it only ever got about 3,000 subscribers. It was, they just kind of found out that the marketplace wasn't ready for what they were selling, and so because I felt pretty strongly that they needed a reason to keep me around, that's why I met with a distributor at that point and basically got some advice from the distributor about what was selling. Because, hey, look, you distribute these movies, what's selling well? And this has become a bit of a story. My friend that I'm referring to here, Isaac, he actually told me today that he's told this story to many people too. Probably fledgling filmmakers who are looking for some sort of encouragement or guidance. And he'll tell my story, which some of you guys have heard, obviously. And the story was that I went right to the horse's mouth. I went to a distributor who knew what was selling in the marketplace and said, okay, what's selling? And then, okay, so let's do that. And when we did that, it predictably sold well, And for any filmmaker, that is pretty good advice. You may not be able to realize your ideal creative vision that way, but that's okay, because if it gives you a foothold to be able to do this thing that you love, then why the heck not, Other people succeed because of your work, and ultimately are maybe more inclined as well to support you in your work going forward. So her finger looks a little large to me. So should we shrink it, or should we? Yeah, let's do that. That feels better. B key, and I'm going to zoom in here and clean this up. So yeah, so that's what this is. This is basically going to be a promotional video for the Encourage TV YouTube channel, where we have myself and my daughter, who happened to have, basically she starred in the first movie, the one that was really successful, and then had a pretty sizable role in the sequel as well. And actually, I had a sizable role in the sequel. I've talked about that here and there. You might get a different opinion from Clint Eastwood, but my opinion is directing yourself in a film is probably not the best idea ever. It really is challenging. Okay, okay, so now we got T and R blocked in, and now what we need to do is figure out what's going to repeat. Basically, and actually, this speaks to workflow a little bit as well. We really need to get her colored first, because if we're going to cut and paste pieces of her, and by the way, this is still not quite right. This still looks a little stupid. If we're going to cut and paste pieces of this character and reuse them, then it makes sense to have them colored first. Otherwise, we have to go through every frame and color them individually, which is kind of stupid. So why would you want to do that? So what we're going to do is, let's say, this is how I normally do it. I say, okay, we're going to need her flesh tone, her irises, her hair, her garment top, her garment bottom. That's probably about it. And for now, all we have to do is ballpark the colors, because, and her skin, by the way, moves a little bit towards the olive or green end of the spectrum, because we can always change the colors after the fact once they're in there, right? As long as things are filled, we can cut and paste and move things around, and if we change the colors, they'll just update. So it's just the point of getting some color in there in the first frame, so that when we do our cutting and pasting, the color's already there, so we don't have to go through and do that meticulous color process. Actually, I'm going to take the Bindu, that's what it's called, the Bindu. That's going to be the Bindu color, and then for now, we'll just pick a color. It doesn't matter. It seems to me she's kind of pinkish purplish on the, and I guess we'll just pick another color that's kind of close, and then we can always rotate it a bit around the color spectrum. But I do think we want to be a little bit on the muted side with these colors, by the way. So let's go with that. That'll work. Okay, so for example, fill. For example, fill, fill. Okay, again, we can always change the colors later. It's no big deal. But in the short term, let's just get some colors in there so that we can then, and as I say, later, once there's a bunch of frames, we can always do this. We can always change the frames after the fact and modify the colors. So that's no big deal. Flesh tone, go here, here, here. Get the Bindu. I guess we technically need like a hair color, so we'll go a little bit richer on that, a little more towards the brown. Again, I'm trying to avoid being overly saturated here with my colors. Looks like we got 9 concurrent viewers, so thanks for coming by, everybody. Let's see. TNR's hair is, or I'm sorry, her irises are pretty bright. And we also need a whites of the eyes color, which is going to be just south of white. So what I'm going to do is, for this, it's just way easier to hit the V key, which is the Smart Raster paintbrush. And we're going to change this from lines and areas to just areas. That way, we can literally just hand paint in her eyes. And then we'll come back and catch the irises here in half a second. But yeah, it's just easier to hand paint them. Okay, then we'll come back up here and grab the irises. And one could certainly make the case that a specular highlight in the eyes would be nice too. And I haven't even thought about shadows yet, frankly. Okay, so let's pull back a little bit. Hello. Looks like OBS, I might hex myself, but it looks like OBS is hanging tough at the moment, and we're not getting too many obnoxious dropouts. Okay, little bitty fix here as I'm looking at this. Let's first of all soften up the outline color a little bit. I usually go about 1/3 of the way, and then just a hint of red in the outline. So that looks pretty good, but I'm thinking I don't like the positioning of her nose. That feels better for TNR. So V key, so I can just scribble in this. Again, a true white like there would probably be pretty cool. And now let's zip out and evaluate. Okay, so I'm feeling like, based on what I'm seeing in the sketch, I'm not feeling like the ink and paint is doing a good job of capturing the irises. Okay, I think I just hit the wrong key. Or I hit the right key and Tahoma didn't catch it. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna dial this in a little tighter. Yeah, I think that's gonna be a little better. So I'm gonna grab the iris color, hit the V key, and then change this back to lines and areas so I can literally just paint over. Well, that's a little dangerous. We're gonna have to reduce this, unfortunately, to like 2 pixels. Otherwise, we're not gonna have room. So, you know, these are just things you bump into when you sort of have a pencil test that feels about right, and then you get the ink in there and you go, oh, it's not quite getting the same feeling as I got from the pencil test. That's closer for sure. But still want to smack that out there a little wider. So I'm being a little extra meticulous here because once this is done, since we're going to be doing some cutting and pasting, we're kind of committing to it, you know. So we want to make sure we get this pretty much right. And this, I'm actually using the brush now, not the Smart Raster paintbrush. But okay, that pretty well does it. And we could even add a tiny bit of a specular here inside the eyes as well, which I think would look pretty good. All right, N key to zoom out, and yes, now that looks like TNR. Okay, so who's here today? We've got 10 people watching, which is, for me, a pretty good number. So as noted before, again, we can always color these, change these colors downstream, which is pretty good, pretty cool. I do think a little more saturation on the colors would be nice. And now, just kind of going around the color wheel, so to speak, to sort of find a color that feels about right for that. It's kind of nice we can do that interactively in the way that we can. And now, what is next? Well, let's make a D key here. Boom. Make a duplicate. And now, frankly, we probably should have the sketch on top. Okay, yeah, because that shows us, and if I hit my tilde key, I can solo this. I want to just check something here. Okay, it looks like I did move her head a little bit. Okay, so that's kind of important. So I'm hitting Control tilde to unsolo the ink layer. Hey, Inio-san. Hey, Max. Max, I'm glad you're here. I took to heart your comments the other day about trying to do a little better job of grabbing people in the characters and story concept video for the crowdfund. I don't think a rewrite is necessary. I will be revisiting it here in the next day or two, I think. Not necessarily here live on YouTube, but my sense as I looked at it later was that if for OBS to reconnect, that hasn't happened in a while, which is great. So yeah, I figured instead of just rerunning the show intro, which it's kind of like everybody's sort of seen that kind of thing, if instead we were to grab some, especially later shots from the show, you know, that are just looking good kind of thing, and get a little bit more appealing character content in that first 5 to 8 seconds of the video, I think that would accomplish sort of emotionally what we're trying to do. Because I do want to keep it brisk and get into the sort of socio-political backdrop as well, you know, fairly quickly. But your comment that, you know, people don't care about that as much as they either grab the characters or they don't, that advice is well taken, and I think it was good advice. Okay, now I just made a boo-boo. But okay, maybe not. I'm going to solo this again and just check. Okay, so dyslexia moment, her head is tilting slightly to my right. Now, an interesting question about this, I'm going to keep going down here through the pencil test because I want to just see in terms of maybe using the plastic tool. I think for now I'll stick with plan A, which is to go ahead and just redraw, repaint. But again, because of the dyslexia moment, I can literally look at this and half a second later I'll forget which way it went. Did she turn this way or that way? So she's turning towards my right, stage right. Okay, so I have to kind of remember that. So how would we do that here? Well, basically in OpenToonz or Tahoma, it's pretty easy. We'll just grab everything probably from here and then set a center point where her head would be kind of anchored and then just tilt it a little bit. Okay, so then all we have to do is fill in that little hole and then basically hit the V key, but again we want to be on areas, and this could probably be jumped back up to 4 pixels, and then just fill in the hole that we just created, and we've got that that new pose taken care of. Now we're going to do the same thing with her arm. So here I'm just going to be a little more careful to chisel this out and go like that so that we can then match the pencil test, which it looks like we kind of got to right about there. Yep, that looks about right. Now I'm going to hit the eraser and just get rid of that. Um, Maria, a couple interviews. Good, good, good. Signed on to a virtual assistant freelance company. Theater production is done. Start signing on to projects there. Get a trickle of income. Nice. On the brighter side, I sent my sister an e-card with running horses, and she really liked it. Very, very nice. Very nice. And sorry, by the way, Inio-san and Maria, to be rudely jumping into the middle of your conversation. All right. So there's that. Close that up. And I can actually clean this up a little bit with my eraser and then hit the G key, which I don't think is a default hotkey, by the way. I wonder if, oops, okay, that's right there. We just saw a quintessential Tahoma glitch, which is that I know for a fact that I hit the V key and it didn't work. Okay, so what we want to do here is switch this back to lines and areas because we really need to cover up that line right there. Okay, not too shabby. This will be animated a bit more with lip sync. Okay, and now we've got a tween. So my sense on the tween, do we want to do a duplicate? Gosh, this is right in that middle zone. The main reason to do a duplicate, which I will do, is because of the because why do you want to redraw the face for no good reason? The problem we have here is there's a lot in this drawing that's going to have to be either moved or changed. So let's just kind of, there's no right answer, right? It's just a trade-off. It's a trade-off between redrawing things, maybe saving a little time by moving them around. Not just saving time either. Oops, okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. Not just saving time, but also preserving your characterization, right? So I drew the character and I'm happy with the way they look, so why do I want to draw it again and maybe change the characterization a bit? Inadvertently. Okay, that feels pretty good. I'm going to go with that. And yep, I'm going to go with this as well. So I'm going to just keep going like this, and then I'll just start chopping out things that I don't need. Like her arm, obviously. Okay, so this needs to go. That all needs to go. And as you can see, that causes the pencil test to be revealed. This one's kind of right in the middle where technically, well, let me look at that again. Yeah. What really happens here is that her arm just, because this is a tween, this is literally on the screen for one frame. So what's supposed to really happen here would be something like this. And then she snaps into this pose. So that'll be pretty easy to clean up. I think, again, shaving off a little bit of her derriere there would probably be okay. So, hey, Tom doing art. Yeah. Welcome, friends. So, for those who came late, what we're doing today is the YouTube channel Encourage TV. Encourage TV is the company that distributes my feature films. Also has a YouTube channel, and most, if not all, of their content is available, freely available here on YouTube. And so they wanted a promotional video welcoming people to the channel, encouraging you to subscribe, that features women, because all the ones that they have are men. Like, so they've got one from Corbin Burnson, they got one from Kevin Sorbo, they've got one from John Schneider, and they want something with women. And so I wrote a script for a 30-second promo video that features Natalie because she was the star of Healed by Grace, which has been a real successful movie for them. And so this promotional video will be about It'll be about 20 seconds of live action of her and me in front of, uh, cutaway footage from the movies. Horse chick flick horse movie stuff. Um, encouraging viewers to subscribe. And then what happens is, in the script, basically it says, and to find out what's new from Blended Planet Pictures, go to blendedplanet.com to find out what we've been up to, and then it wipes, and we turn from human beings into cartoon characters, and then Mel and Tianara mention Salt and Light. So that's what this is. This is a promotional video for the Encourage TV YouTube channel. Okay, so now we do see a little change in her head position. So I would say, since she's sort of getting whittled down to nothing here, we'll just keep running with that. And I would say, for me, I would also want to see a little bit of a change here, where that's straightening out a bit. For that one, okay, yeah, again, the main thing here is just the turn of her head. I have no clue who are those people. Hey Max, I don't. Who are you talking about? Oh, the people that do the promotional videos. Yes, that's right. Tom's got it. They're basically people from 70s to 90s American television shows. I mean, Corbin Burson, I think, was on L.A. Law, if I'm remembering correctly. He did a cameo once on Seinfeld too, but he was on L.A. Law. John Schneider obviously was on The Dukes of Hazzard back in the 80s. And he was on Smallville, so that's like the Superman show from the 90s. He was Clark Kent's dad on Smallville for quite a few years. Who was the other one? Kevin Sorbo. There was a show from the 90s. It was actually a first-run syndication show, as I recall, called Hercules: The Legendary Journeys. And so yeah. So that's Kevin Sorbo. He, like I said, he was on this show, Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, back in the day. And but like I said, they really didn't have any promo content from people that weren't women. So can you help us out with that, Dave? I'm like, dude, I think I can help you out with that. And so since Natalie starred in Healed by Grace, it made perfect sense to do a promotional video featuring her. Okay, let me check something here. I think we'll just keep going on the course that we are on. Yeah. Just because, again, it means we don't have to keep redrawing our head for no good reason. And what we'll do is we'll just clean up the... Okay, I'm introducing some glitches here. So what I'm going to do is actually just trim this off right here. And now get that to sort of match that. Kind of like that. And then we'll just kind of make it work. Okay, same thing again. So yeah, we're definitely introducing a lot of cleanup, right? And that's fine. And I'm kind of letting this be a little bit more exaggerated, perhaps. Is that it for Tianara? I think it is. Yep, that's it. So now we just have to go in and clean that stuff up so that it doesn't look silly. With one little caveat, which seems to be that does not look like that's quite in the right position. So let's fix that. Okay, cool. More girly, huh? Yeah. No. No, Max. That's not what we're gonna do. Uh, Obviously, that would be a topic of a certain amount of debate. Tianara is 14-ish, 15, not super necessarily well endowed. Yeah. And so, for the moment, for this promotional video that's going to be literally on the screen for about 8 seconds or so, I think we're going to keep Tianara on the more modest side in terms of her endowments. That's the choice I'm making here today. Which is pretty much the way she is in the show, by the way. Which I guess, you know, she should be the way she is in the show. Okay, exchanging comments. I can read and speak a little Spanish and German. Oh. What are you guys talking about? Oh, I see what's going on up here. Oh, my German is just not what it used to be. Back around the year 2000, my German, I sort of developed my German because we had a German foreign exchange student back then. My boyfriend left because I was learning by ear. Head tilt plus smile at the end would be great then. Yeah, the head tilt plus smile is obviously precisely what's in there. Ba-da, ba-da. So, anyway, ink and paint. Onward and upward we go. So, yep, now we start fixing things up. This is a tween, only going to be on the screen for 1 frame. So we have a little latitude. You don't want to get sloppy, but at the same time you want to realize that it ain't going to be on the screen very long. And I'm going to actually go ahead and clean some of this up like so. Shave maybe a little more off there. Okay. B key. That's good. This, let's just look at the preview. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. There. F key, little V key, little G key, again F key, and I can see right here we got a little bit of a little hiccup sneaking through. So there is a little bit of noise around her hand, but again, this is on the screen 1 frame. So this frame matters way more. Way more. Did I give you guys the impression that it matters way more? Because it does. Lunch break is over. All right, see you, Max. See ya, Max. Okay, checking the size of things. So it's fun. It's fun creating stuff for other people. It makes me happy to make people happy. To a degree. Because we all have our limits, don't we? So yeah, it's fun to be creating something for someone else's YouTube channel that is gonna feature the Salt and Light characters. But you know, I mean, they're gonna be distributing it, so they do want to let people know about it. They just don't want to specifically, in other words, the higher ups, you might say, don't necessarily want to specifically promote a crowdfund that they're not actually already distributing. And again, as I think I explained yesterday, that's one of the reasons to do this as an open-ended campaign, because it's, as I think I did say yesterday, it seems to me to be highly likely that the support that the show receives, a lot of that support is going to come in after the first episode's out, and the show gets a little traction and a little more, sort of public awareness and stuff. So this is all just a process. It takes time. I'm liking that. I'm liking that. Let's go back and... Yeah, she needs some eye blinks, obviously, but I think we'll just put the blinks on a separate level so that we can just overlay it. And okay, yeah, there's something missing here, isn't there? Oh dear. Oh dear. Dave, you fool, you fool, as Gilbert Gottfried would say. You fool! This. So I am literally flying blind here, people. I am doing this tween completely on gut. Remember, this is only on the screen for one frame, so we don't have to delineate all the details of her hand. But it does kind of need to be there. Alright, so let's look at that actual size. So again, that's a little sloppy. Boom. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's one of the, I've mentioned this before, one of the nice things about working at 12 frames a second is you can get away with a little more in terms of tweening. Not in the sense of, like dying to be sloppy, but it's just the idea that when stuff moves fast, your eye just registers it as a blur anyway. You're not going to register in your mind her hand. You're just not. Your brain can't keep up. Your brain can't keep up, people. Okay, so now her arm does actually sway out a bit more here, so we'll go ahead and let's kind of boom, we'll catch that there. Nah, it's a little thin there, Dave. Little thin. Okay, that's better. That'll work. Looks like OBS is doing okay. So Chris K, hey, haven't seen you in a while. How's the show going? Everything I'm doing, I kind of said this at the beginning today, but basically it's really obvious to me as I'm beginning to talk to friends and associates in the media industry who know my work and whatnot. It's pretty obvious to me that as we get closer to a crowdfund, that's really going to become my job for a while, is going to be promoting the show. I mean, it's something that's really got to happen, obviously. And so, I talked to one of the guys that had a really important role in the opportunity that I got back, 10 years ago, to make films, and he's got a sort of a podcast slash. It's like a 22-minute program that we're gonna have me on probably next week. So that's what happens is you start getting the word out about this stuff, and you realize it's a cool thing in a way, but the more stuff you know for sure you need to do, the more stuff all of a sudden you think of that you could do, right? So there are people who interviewed me, for example, when I released Healed by Grace 2, that might want to interview me now again just because of, whatever. I've got something else going on that's kind of cool, That's just the way it works. So reconnecting with some of those people becomes part of the process. And it's fun. It is actually kind of a lot of fun to reconnect with people I haven't talked to in a long time and that sort of stuff. That sort of stuff. So, Tom, I'm interested how it works out with Darren's participation in your production. Well, yeah, I should be getting something from him, I think, this weekend. I may be able to contribute that way if it works in your favor. Yeah, I think once we're at the point where, like in a perfect world, would I be doing this this pencil test and then offloading it. I mean, obviously there could be other artists that do the pencil test too, but my point is that at this earlier point in the process, would it be, if I do a pencil test, would it be great to be able to just hand what I'm doing now off to someone else? Yeah, it'd be cool. That'd be cool. So at some point, Val and I were just talking about that. At some point when it becomes viable to, as we say, expand the team, we just want to be really, really careful and cautious how we do that, so that we approach things with reasonable expectations and I guess that's it. That's the biggie. Making sure people are clear on what you expect from them and what they expect from you, because obviously people like to get paid, stuff like that. It can be rather important. Okay, so now it looks to me, wow, look, her, okay, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and just animate this, get this thing solved. Like that. She's kind of doing the Mary Poppins thing, I would say, for lack of a better term. Let's go ahead and, as I always like to say, going from the known to the unknown. You can see that her arm in the sketch is definitely too skinny. So what I'm going to do is just kind of get the one contour right, and then that should sort of elucidate what the other contour should look like. In other words, the top of her arm. So let's get the bottom moving correctly, and then we'll deal with the top. First things first. Yep, Mary Poppins. Hey, Rohit Pandy. I think that it is true that as you become older and more experienced in the media space, it does to a degree sort of become about just doing cool work with people that you like to work with. I've never done a ton of collaboration, but we kind of got into this a little bit the other day. The problem is, in the Midwest here of the United States, okay, in Indiana, there really aren't that many people that what I'm doing is really, really weird. I mean, like, filmmaking, of course, is weird, and probably animation is even more weird. So it's like so unusual that there just aren't that many people around that would be involved. Now, does that matter today when you've got the whole, YouTube community and internet at your disposal? Probably not. Probably doesn't matter much. Everybody's sort of distributed all. I mean, especially with COVID-19. I mean, come on. It's COVID. COVID was interesting because it was. I mean, obviously it's horrible, but for me, it was a situation where Moho Pro is very easy for character animation. Started using Moho. Yeah, I've been using Moho for 10 years. My first forays into 2D animation, as opposed to the 3D type stuff I was doing with Blend work, I don't know. I haven't really messed with. Actually, I did at one point fiddle with the demo, and it immediately did not work for me because it demanded a version of OpenGL that I did not have. If you don't upgrade your GPU, for most people that means buying a new card, that can be a problem. So Moho, whatever the latest version is, became a non-starter for me because of the OpenGL requirements. Control C. I know it sounds stupid. Oh, come on, Dave. You got this hot computer. Like, really? The thing about it is, if new software comes out and it demands a different version of OpenGL, then you're in a very real sense at risk of breaking you know, when you start upgrading drivers and stuff, you solve one problem, and it is almost axiomatic that it also will create others. Now, sometimes those others don't matter much, and it's not a big deal. But I'm reticent to do an upgrade just to test a piece of software that I may not even be using anyway. Yeah, that seems kind of silly to me. So for that reason, I've sort of stayed away from Moho. But the most recent feature set does look pretty compelling. Looks pretty cool. So that's what I have to say about that. That's what I have to say about Moho. Yeah, it definitely is a bit Mary Poppins, isn't it? Well, that's okay. It's got a happy vibe. Happy vibe. What I'm doing right now, I really love working this way. I actually really like doing this. Just toggle back and forth, find the drawing, and then connect the dots, baby. It's not probably everyone's cup of tea, but I like it. I like it. I do. I really, really do. Okay. Boom, boom. So this needs to be stopped off, obviously. Ba-doop-boop-a-doop-doo. Colorblind, huh, Tom? Colorblind. I think I have a very slight bit of colorblindness in the sense that between my right and my left eye, they do have slightly different tints to them, where one is tinted more to the yellow and one's tinted more to the blue. It's very, very slight. Don't know if that's kind of sort of normal-ish. Don't really have a clue. Don't have a clue. Keep going. See, we got that. Okay, I can see. And of course, if you're looking really close, by the way, right now, you might be getting a little edgy about the fact that the drawing of Tianara is blurred a little bit from rotating and whatnot. And I think that's a legitimate complaint at this point. As far as I can see this, I want to redo this one. Especially because she lands on this pose. Let's just go back here. Grab the original. This is a pretty easy fix for the problem that I've uncovered here. Which is you hit the S key, paste it in, and now I've got a fresh copy, and I'm only going to have one generation of rotation going on. So I wish that when you're moving something around with the selection tool, that it preserve the opacity of the surrounding layers, because it excuse me, the way I'm doing it, it's kind of hard to get things lined up correctly. You sort of have to guess and hope. See that? See how it went solid? I wish it didn't do that, but hey, you can't have everything. You can't have everything. You can have some things, but you can't have everything. Okay, so there's that. There's that. Boom, 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 boom. Fill tool. Boom, boom. Okay, so that's a little crisper. One could argue this one's a little questionable, but I suspect with a tiny bit of judicious sharpening, it's really not going to make any difference. So, got that. Got that. Next. 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 Ah, there we go. Fill tool, F key, boom, boom, boom. I'll just keep going with her dress, and then we'll come back and catch the belt. And then we'll fix problems like the one I just obviously introduced. And I am definitely not liking that. Some of you out there are going, yeah, Dave. That does not look very good. That looks way better. Yeah, way better. One could maybe argue that this arm could maybe sneak back just a little bit that way, but basically, we're okay. I think we're okay. B key. All right, I haven't really been checking the comments or whatever in a bit, so hey, Golden Slime, how you doing, buddy? Technical Trekker is kind of new-ish here, I think. Technical mentioned animation. You want to sell your short film and show how you can do this, know a process or any best course. Well, if you're wanting to learn, if you're just learning tools, okay, so the Technical Trekker is asking an interesting question that's kind of hard to answer, and here's why. You've already said you're a Moho guy, okay? So if you're a Moho guy, then what is it you're wanting to learn here where we're not using Moho? So it's great to have you, but if you're looking at learning animation principles in general, I don't know if I can help directly with that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the real world process of creating a real world show. Oh, come on. I had a leak right there. That's what I'm doing. I'm creating an actual 24-minute kind of anime, sort of a Western anime style television show. And so that show, Technical Trekker, is, well, I mean, we're getting close to the point where the animation on 2 entire episodes is done. So most of what I'm talking about most recently here has to do with the crowdfund that we're going to be doing to support the show. So, you know, I mean, I have distribution set up, so just to sort of know that you can kind of put your head down and focus on doing the work for the next several years, which is what we're talking about. We're talking about 3 to 4 years of production. You know, it's a 12-episode TV show. So, Golden Slime says, I don't know how to sell, but practice in animation. Thank you, Tom, for cueing that. You're right. There it went. Okay, so yeah. Sorry about that. As if it were my fault. The problem, the idea of selling a short film is a kind of a misnomer, because who buys short films? I mean, just ask yourself that question. Who buys a short film in the industry? Literally no one. I mean, basically. No one buys a short film. People buy movies. They don't really buy them. Usually what they do is they license them. But that's neither here nor there. Movies and shows. Basically nobody buys or licenses a short film. Why? Well, would you license a short film? And if you were going to license a short film, why would you license a short film? Short films aren't something that anyone basically, I mean, statistically, basically no one watches short films. Short films are what talented young people create as a calling card in order to open the door to another opportunity. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's a perfectly fine thing to do. And if that's really what you're saying your goal is, then that's a good goal. Short films never sell because there's no market for them. There is no marketplace anywhere for short films. The only people that ever create short films, I mean, there are exceptions, but they're really, really rare. Okay? A short film can be a good resume. It can show people what you're capable of. What it doesn't do for you, which is actually hugely important, if you own Netflix or you own Amazon Prime, or or you're the executive, and you've got to make a decision, what am I going to spend my money on? Okay? Are you ever, like in a million years, ever going to spend any investment, time, energy, promotional expense on a short film? No, of course not. Why would you? complete waste of time. There's no market for that. People don't sit and watch short films. Okay. But again, as a creator, it can be a useful calling card to say, hey, this is what I can do. So what I was about to say and didn't finish my sentence is the thing that you can never show with a short film, although you can give hints of it, is your ability to engage an audience over an entire 90-minute story, or in the case of a show, obviously a half-hour or an hour-long story, or the larger arc that expands over many episodes. Do you have the ability to write and create the story and characters that work? Does a short film show that? It can give hints of it. It can give an indication. I mean, I think I could probably look at someone's short film and have a sense of whether they could write a full movie, for example. Okay. But you would also want to watch them kind of closely and guide them along the way, so they don't get off the rails, which can definitely happen. So again, short films are a good way to show what you kind of sort of think you can do. And that's about it. That's about what they're good for, really. I've never done a short film in my life. Never. I went straight from, I was doing corporate video and sports coverage. Well, yeah, you used to have cartoons, of course, too, before films. But it's been 50, 60 years since that was true. And now that everything's streaming, where would you put it, right? So the only company or entity that has continued in the present day to kind of sort of make that a thing is Pixar and the Blender Foundation. That's it. Basically, as far as I can tell. You got Pixar and the Blender Foundation. They have used, in both cases, they have used short films as a tool to both test and demonstrate new technology in the software. And that's quite a useful exercise, for sure. Quite a useful exercise. Okay, so we got TNR. I think we got TNR done other than lip sync. So let's kill this level. We can just turn it off so that we can review the animation. So anyway, I jumped straight into making a full 90-minute movie is what I did. And the 90-minute movie, it actually took 2 years before I found somebody. It took 2 years to find somebody who would pay something to license that movie. And that movie, there were a lot of things wrong with that movie. Okay. I mean, I look at it now and I just cringe, right? But as I mentioned early in the live stream today, there was one guy with one sort of second tier, third tier cable network, fledgling thing, that saw something in my ability where when they were ready to fund original programming in order to sort of add that button to what they had to offer, I was the guy who was there and ready to deliver the goods, So, oops. I'm seeing some noise right here. Let's clean this up a bit. Let's clean this up a bit, people. I'm going to hit the V key, but I'm going to put it in lines and areas mode. So I can start to erase some of these little hiccups. Little hiccups. Hiccups, hiccups, hiccups. I can always go in and add more lines if they're needed. So again, you can see the difference in blurriness between the original lines and the lines that were essentially rotated. Excuse me. Okay, so we've been live streaming an hour and 16 minutes today. Okay, so I think we're kind of there. I don't necessarily love her skin tone at the moment. I feel like TNR is supposed to be just a little darker. And again, a little more. Yes, they are just a little bit pushing more towards the olive. And then maybe saturation. That is actually looking more like TNR to me. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely better. Way better. Save all. Get your content. Kind of sad, really. I bet there are lots of stories that are better told in a shorter format. Well, and again, there's nothing wrong with doing it. I think if you're going to approach it that way, this is what I would do. Okay, if you put a gun to my head and say, Dave, you got to create a short film, I'd say, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a 7-minute thing or an 8-minute thing, but I'm going to do it with the mindset that later it's going to be chained onto 2 other ones to make a full half hour or a 24-minute show. That's probably what I would do. Now, there's some craft in the writing part of it that would allow you to make each one of those stand alone okay, but yet still tie together as a complete unit. Here, I better save my work, by the way, because I'm about to do something dangerous. Hit the B key, and okay. I'm going to paste this in here, and we'll just use that for our ink color. Get your content hosted on YouTube. Set up something like Patreon to allow tipping. You can be a busker in the cloud. I agree with Tom. You know, I mean, you know, and we've talked about that with the fan Futurama thing that I wrote. I think that for sure the sensible thing to do with that would be to just create it in increments, not entirely unlike a short film. You know, maybe 5-minute segments, and just release them on YouTube and say, you know, it's just a fan thing. And that could work. I mean, I think it would work. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that would want to see it. That's for sure. So then you've got YouTube views, and then as I think I got into a little bit the other day, the risk you run is that if you do the Patreon thing with something like that, then you're kind of inviting legal questions from the original creators. So, to which probably somebody here would say, well, I'm not talking about that, though. I'm talking about just creating something original. And that's where the anime that I was working on before I started working on Salt and Light, because the reason I started working on Salt and Light is because, you know, conversing with my film distributor, we just kind of came to an agreement that it was a good idea, you know, at this time. You know, it was something that the market seems like maybe it would embrace, right? So, but before I was working on this, I was working on essentially an anime. You know, a much more dyed-in-the-wool Japanese style anime. Well, I think that was a cool show, and it still is viable, but I think that would be a good example of something that would be that would work as a YouTube property, where again you release it in a few minutes at a time, pretty regularly if you can, and just build up a fan base, you know. I do have a strong conviction that if it's good, I've said this before, I know you guys, but you know, if it's good, you'll find an audience. You'll find your audience. Might take a while, but any business you get into, you got to figure on a 2 to 8 year life cycle anyway. Okay, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Any craft that you're trying to develop, like animation, you know, if you're a songwriter, if you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter. Everything you do has a life cycle. And to a degree, that life cycle is kind of predictable, actually, to a larger degree than you might think. And so if you accept that up front, that nothing happens fast, and you're truly committed to your idea or your concept, well, then you're going to stay the course and stick with it until you get to success. The reality is, in that scenario, that usually if people don't get to success, whatever that success is going to be, in other words, if it's really, really poorly targeted to any market at all, it's going to have more limited prospects than something that's reasonably well targeted to a certain market or segment or demographic or whatever. But setting that aside, basically, if you fail, quote unquote, it's probably because you quit. At some point, you just stopped because you gave up. You no longer believed it was going to work, whatever. And I mention that because you're never ever going to get into any business ever where that doesn't happen. Trust me, you're never going to get into any business where you don't have a period of time where you doubt whether this is going to work, whether you're going to make, sales or get customers. Ever. You're always going to, and it's my actual conviction. This is a little esoteric, but it's actually my conviction that that's a good thing. You could say, in a sense, that the universe tests you. Tests your resolve. Tests how really committed you are to your idea. You think your idea is so great? Okay, let's find out how committed you are. Let's have everything go wrong. Let's give you every setback, every reason to believe it's not going to work. And that becomes part of the that becomes a testing process to see just how serious you are. And if you're not serious enough to get through that process, then do you really deserve to succeed? Okay, so now somebody out there is probably going to have some kind of objection to what I'm saying. So please weigh in if you want to. I'm interested to hear a different point of view. Sifter says, that's actually what I'm trying to do with my own shorts. Several of them stand alone as shorts, but together they become one single feature. Cool. It's a good idea. But if you have original content, I saw a comment recently that Masters of the Universe is partly the way it was in the recent version because of copyright. Well, that's interesting. Masters of the Universe as a part of cartoon history. I mean, that's He-Man, right? Yeah, right. Mattel owns the figures, likenesses, but not the original stories. Right, and that's... So, He-Man and Masters of the Universe was done by Filmation, okay? And Filmation was a neat company. It was an American company. When the rest of the industry, including Hanna-Barbera, were starting to send all their work overseas, they were holdouts, and they kept it here in the U.S. And you can find pretty good documentaries here on YouTube about Filmation, but they don't exist anymore. They kind of got the company bought out from under them in a sense, but again, that's a whole nother story you can look into if you want to. But yeah, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was an interesting time because what actually took place was the climate, because of Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, the climate for Saturday morning cartoons, which is what we grew up with in the 70s, had really cooled off, right? And so their ability to sell product was greatly diminished. The networks weren't buying the cartoons anymore. And you could also argue that creatively, what you saw happening on Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network was kind of different, definitely a little edgier. So it's a fair case that can be made that the type of cartoons that Filmation were creating had their day, and they were kind of old news at that point. So that's a fair case that you can make. But the basic gist of the problem was that they had lost their customers. Okay, because Saturday morning cartoons became no longer a thing. Well, what do? And to their credit, they took a pretty big risk creating a cartoon as a strip in first-run syndication. So what that meant was that they have to create enough shows so that they essentially have 5 years worth of shows, so they can run one every day, not once a week, once a day. So they really had to go out on a limb to create a lot of content. And the concept that they had really just happened to turn out to be the right thing at the right time in the right place. And He-Man, Skeletor and all that, it was a smash. I mean, it was a huge success. If you did the same thing today, I don't think it would be. Not, at least not in the form that it was then. And by the way, I don't need to draw his hands because he's off screen. I think you guys probably knew that. Yeah, He-Man saved the company. I mean, literally saved the company. If it wasn't for He-Man being successful, the company would have been done at that point, as I recall. But again, neat company, good people, you know, at the helm. It was one of those rare companies. I think it's a good model, frankly, for me. And what would I want my company to look like? Well, you know, they tended to promote from within. So they had people that would be, you know, helping out with animation, but also like writing stories. You know, maybe the crossover wasn't quite that extreme, but it was that type of thing where people tended to move around and up within the company as opposed to, you know, a lot of hiring from outside and that sort of thing. So they had a real ethic about what they were, you know, what they were about as a company, which I think was pretty cool. So we'll go a couple shades darker there, and I believe we will go maybe a shade lighter there. Now I don't like the tint is throwing that off a bit. That feels about right. Okay, so the problem is, one of the problems is that when it comes to cartoons, kind of where's the money come from? And obviously licensing, you know, the big licensing coup that sort of set the standard for everybody else, of course, was George Lucas with Star Wars. You know, with which he did a brilliant job of retaining the rights to his characters, such that when Star Wars exploded, he wound up. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I'm gonna just take a wild guess and say that he made at least twice as much money from the licensing aspect as he ever made from the movies. You know, directly because of theater ticket sales, right? And you have to give George Lucas credit for courage and believing in his, you know, his world he was creating enough to take the risk. I mean, that's the problem in the media space a lot of times, is you're balancing your risk against your potential upside, because this stuff takes a lot of time. You know, it takes a lot of time to make it. And I'm a guy that I can speak with authority that you can spend months creating something that winds up being not successful at all. And that's not the most fun thing ever. But it happens, you know. Okay, so Mel has that green band that he wears. And frankly, there's a part of me that's wanting to... Let's just play around with color tints here. I am just going to... You know, that actually feels... Something in the more reddish space feels better to me when I'm moving quickly. It's like doing EQ on music. You know, you want to move fast. You can just feel how things change the way they feel. I think for this promo shot, I think I'm going to go for more of a brownish olive color. And I can always change it, you know. I can always change it later. That's my option. Because it's my show. I get to do what I want. So nothing new in the comments. But my point about licensing was that, as you say, Mattel owned the likenesses, so that's got something to do with whatever the deal was that they worked out in order to come to an equitable arrangement that Mattel was willing to get on board with at the time. And what's going on now with the ownership of either He-Man or the licensing side versus the creative side, you know, creating new shows or whatever, because I don't know what's going on with Masters of the Universe. I have no idea. Maybe there's like a direct-to-Netflix reboot of it or something going on. I don't know. Tom. I do have color sheets created, and for the purposes of what we're doing here, they just don't matter that much. You know, they just don't matter that much. Whoever sees this promo will have no familiarity with the characters anyway. So ultimately, the color schemes might even change to a degree based on how it sits with the footage or graphics that are behind the character. So, you know, as long as we're in the zone, we're okay for this thing. It's one of those things where, on the one hand, yes, of course, you want to have a color key that is authoritative, you know, for your characters. But on the other hand, you'd be surprised how many things come up that change the game, such that it really turned out not to be that important anyway. For example, once you introduce any lighting or color cast or color correction, all those colors actually change anyway, like almost all the time, right? A color theme per character, even if it's warm. Cool. No, I get your point, Tom. I'm not gonna go there at the moment. At the moment, I'm more interested in getting these guys blocked in, and then I'll probably go back offline and consider some changes. Because you know what? I mean, it is a valid point. Maybe we don't want TNR to have a purple outfit. You know, maybe we want her to, in this case, to have something that's a little more popping out like this. You know, and does that cause a contrast with her hoodie that's, you know, that's a little concerning? Yeah, maybe. So maybe, you know, and I may go back and change them later. So I definitely respect the input from the vantage point that I do not consider myself to be a brilliant color guy. Definitely not. V key. Boy, Tahoma, you're annoying me. I keep hitting the V key, and I have to hit it twice in order for Tahoma to wake up and acknowledge that I hit the V key. You cursed thing. You silly goose. What I am adhering to on this segment is basically their costuming. So like the design of the costumes are certainly what they wear in the show. But again, we may introduce a little bit of flexibility on the color side of things. Okay, so this should probably be shot number 1, because all he did there was blink. And then he basically doesn't do anything until we get to here. And then it looks like another blink. Another blink. And looks like I did 2 blinks. And then he looks at the audience. Okay, got it. So this, Control C, Control V. So we don't want him moving around too much because it just creates a distraction. What's going on? Okay, so let me see here. So honestly, with OpenToonz, from a production standpoint, color models aren't that necessary. Just import the color palettes from one scene to another, and you're golden. Well, that is true. I mean, there's 100 ways to do it. I mean, you could drop some other still image from the show into it and just sample the colors, and the whole process will take you 20 seconds. So, just not that. You know, it's not a high priority item at the moment. What's going on with the He-Man is in relation to the culture war. Been watching Owl House clips lately and looking at such things. Same was with the Avatar color themes. Yeah, I mean it's right here in my book. I mean you can go through this book, The Art of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and you can find the various model sheets and things that they used. So it's quite valuable. All I'm saying is that there does tend to be a lot of exceptions to the rule. So the elegant, beautiful scenario where it's always going to be consistent in the same, which I know you're not saying that, okay, but you know, it turns out that there's kind of a lot of flexibility. Just because color correction changes everything at the editing stage anyway. Like 100% of the time. But what's your point about He-Man in relation to the culture war? What is that about? I have no idea what you're even talking about there. And by the way, Chizyapo Cheponda. Hello. Okay, so here we've got, this is going to be a duplicate of one actually. So I'm going to hit D here so I can drag this down here. Then this, I think that we can cheat here by going fill in empty cells. And then this is what I had a bit of trouble with when I was doing the pencil test. Okay, so we're going to do the whites of the eyes, hit the V key, and completely erase them. And now we're going to grab this color. And the trick here is we want to make it look like Mel is actually looking out at the audience. It's kind of like surprisingly tricky to make a character look out at the audience and not look like they're looking slightly one way or the other. You'd be surprised. See, and that didn't work at all. I have to like erase. This is going to be like a clunky process. It's going to take me a bit of time to get right, I'm sure. Kind of sad. You'd think it would be like easy peasy. Let's switch to the other direction. N key. Okay, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. So then he goes into broom, broom, broom. Okay. So let's just take a peek at what we have here, folks. Yeah, I mean, I guess we're in the zone. We're in the zone. Culture war in this sense. What is the message of the content? Polarized political perspectives and trends in society. Okay, I figured that was kind of what you were. The only letdown in those art books is they only show you the best bits of what they've made. There's a pile of real design drafting material that they hide from us. And I refer to the ugly ideation sketches. Ugly. Well, and that's right. Well, Sifter, that's why you probably like my channel, because you're seeing the ugly. You know, you're seeing the actual process, what it really looks like. And frankly, when I was looking for content like this back in the day, I couldn't find it, and that's why I just figured, okay, I'll just do it myself, you know. Because I agree with you. Now, you do have, I will say this, where you can find a little bit of that is if you look at the, let me see if this is a public. On my YouTube channel, I've got a playlist called Trigger, which is basically, that's based on Trigger Studios, which is, they did, oh boy, I mean, they did Gurren Lagann. It was Gainax, and then they split off and formed Trigger, but, you know, basically Yo-Yo Shinari and the crowd he runs with did, Kill La Kill. They did Little Witch Academia. So I like Yo's work, and I have a playlist of sort of behind-the-scenes stuff from various Trigger productions and other anime-related stuff on my YouTube channel, and that it's not perfect, but it definitely shows you a lot of the more gritty behind-the-scenes process of creating Japanese anime. One thing, though, about this that I find kind of weird, that I find interesting, is they've got the poster, and this is kind of throughout the book actually, where you've got, you know, here's the cover, and it's a great looking cover, but the ironic thing about it is if you zoom in real close, it does not look like Aang. I mean, he's literally off character in this poster, but yet that's what they decided to put on the cover, which to me seems a little funny, but He says the guy who's like famous for drawing his own characters off character, right? I get it, believe me, because that is true. Okay, so anyway, here his expression changes a little bit, and it looks like his body language also adjusts a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this up a bit. So I want to see what happens from here to here. Okay, okay, this was an anticipation. That's what I did. Okay, so what's going on here is before I animated him, I wanted to put in an anticipation where he essentially leaned just a little bit forward before he leaned back. So what is this image for? It looks like it's blank if you look over here. So this is kind of a glitch. I'm going to go delete. I'm going to come over here and hit Control X and just take it out of the image sequence. Save my work, and then let's recreate another image, and then we'll go ahead and start putting in the... But yeah, I agree with you, Tom. I like the rough stuff. So yeah, I would have to say that I like the rough stuff is probably the most controversial statement I've made in a while. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to grab the whole character, anchor him like that, and then he just did a little anticipation like that. Okay? This is really, I tell you, this is really a repurposing of the prior shot, but I guess what we'll do is we'll go D here, drag this down here, and again, you can actually just fill in empty cells. So now we have this. And then this is going to be a slight modification of the other. One could ask, well, wait a second, Dave, why are you... Seems like it's probably fair game for maybe the plastic tool, and you would be correct. But we're not doing it that way this time. So we've got a little bit to clean up there. And this is going to be the D key. So I am actually going to just keep doing kind of what I did with TNR. I'm going to see how this kind of rotates around. Okay, let's look at his body weight. I'm going to re-ink that one from scratch. Okay, yeah, so he has that. Maybe not, actually. I want to re-ink the body. Now what we're talking about is we're going to ignore his expression because he's actually talking at this point. And so we need to remove his mouth from the shot. So hit the V key and just erase it. Doesn't belong in there. Here, okay, actually here I guess it's okay. So there he's talking and there he's talking. So this needs to be taken out. S key. And little erasing. Okay, now we're leaving the pencil test over top of it so that I can kind of get a sense of whether it's kind of sort of working or not. Since we don't have the lip sync in there. So speaking of the rough stuff, this kind of looks like the rough stuff. You know what? It worked. It worked. It's moving a little fast, which helps me. The fact that this is at 12, the fact that it's at 12 frames. Thank you, Tom, for posting that it's buffering, because I was busy working and wasn't paying attention to that. Okay, we're in good shape. Let's keep rocking here. I'm starting to get a little motivated. So there. Okay. E key. Let's get rid of that little mess right there. Presumably, I think his expression actually worked. So now let's really kick some hootie on the on ink and paint. Okay, so I'm going to take this, and I'm not going to be looking at the comments here for a bit because I want to really get booking here on this. Okay, so here we got that, boom, B key. I said B key, Tahoma. Pay attention, or I'll smack you upside the head. All right, boom, boom. Okay, back here. Okay, we got a little hiccup there with the cut and paste that we're going to have to fix, obviously. Okay, so let's get this in here. That kind of went up like that. This is obviously screwy. So those of you that are getting edgy because you can see that it's screwy and I'm not fixing it yet, just be aware I do know that it's a little screwy. Okay, there's that. Like all this stuff that's not lining up correctly because of the cutting and pasting. That's all going to take seconds to fix. It's no big deal. And again, at the risk of being a complete slopper, complete hack, you could actually argue that those don't even need to be fixed. Why? Because look. Okay. Actual size. I'm going to argue they do need to be fixed, but not by much. Yeah, you barely see the problem. I know it sounds pretty chimpy to look at, to even consider not fixing such things, but it's just because it really does matter to me to be aware of whether something you're seeing on the screen in a still frame is actually going to be visible when things are moving fast, because oftentimes they're not. Now, what does happen is you feel it, like viscerally, you feel something was wrong there, like you'd notice this little hiccup right there, and you want to be sensitive to that. And obviously, if it's an issue, fix it, right? You know, so I'm not saying be sloppy just for the sake of being sloppy. You guys know what I'm trying to say. So get that. Boom, 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 boom. As you guys can see, normally what you're seeing right now is the normal case, which is that the truth is, when I'm not talking, when I quit talking, I actually work kind of a lot faster, actually. So one could say, well, Dave, then why do you live stream? Because it's fun. You guys are great. What can I say? It's fun. Live streaming's fun. Okay, so now we do have his belt here, so we got a little problem. Boom. B key, let's just get this. Boom, right there. I'm just going to make that line right there, like that. Now I'm going to start ripping through this. Ripping through it. We'll deal with the other side of his arm here shortly. Boom. Okay. We're going to have a little mess there to clean up with the B key. Boom. And just for fun, we'll test the this wonderful feature that people get really excited about, which is segment. Let's see if it works. It did in this case. Nice. Nice. B key. Okay. And boom, 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 boom. Okay. We got that. That's his belt. So this comes down here. I suppose if I was truly the master craftsman, I would be able to create animation in real time, like as fast as you can speed paint. Right? That'd be cool. Hey Darren, I didn't see you there. It's almost 5 o'clock. How are we all? I think we're doing pretty good. Pretty good. I'm working on the promotional video for Encourage TV's YouTube channel, which, as I've mentioned, is kind of a hot spot for family-friendly entertainment. So my movies, Healed by Grace 1 and 2, can be watched on the Encourage TV YouTube channel, as well as many other places like Tubi. And so I'm creating a 30-second promo video where that will mainly feature Natalie because she was obviously the star of Healed by Grace. So Natalie's going to do this promo video, and I'll be in it too since I was the writer-director, welcoming people to the Encourage TV YouTube channel, and be sure to subscribe. That's the basic gist of the video. And then at the end, it says, and I think I say, I got to remember, I don't remember what I wrote in the script, but so then the script says, and be sure to visit BlendedPlanet.com to see what we've been up to. And then Natalie said, and what happens is it wipes and we turn into cartoon characters. So that's what this is. And when we turn into cartoon characters, she says, including Salt and Light, an all-new animated adventure. And then Mel says, yeah, what she said. And that's basically it. So there's about 8 seconds of the Salt and Light characters in the promotional video for Encourage TV. So the other thing that's kind of cooking today that I talked about a little bit was how the process of this sort of aggressive, you might say, and busy promotional process, I can kind of feel it already starting. Whoops, I just hit the wrong key, darn it. So, you know, I talked to a key friend today who was instrumental in helping me get my film career off the ground. And he's going to be interviewing me this next week on his podcast kind of thing. And so you can sort of smell these things coming about, and you can just tell that's basically what's there's gonna be more of that going on as time goes forward. And so I can just see that over the next couple months there's probably gonna be a fair amount of sort of promotional activity that's gonna be taking up my time. And so this is not technically actually part of the show. This is just the characters from the show featured in someone else's little promotional bit. So it's a cool thing. Which, by the way, is one of the reasons I decided to go ahead and produce this video at... His hand's a little large, isn't it? I decided to go ahead and create this animation at 12 frames per second. And frankly, it's a luxury. It actually is kind of neat to have that higher frame rate. For tweening, you know. A little more work, but it definitely has its attraction. Operating at 12 frames a second instead of 8. And let's just kind of zap back into that, and then we'll kind of go oop boop like that. N key, yeah, not bad, not bad, not bad. Okay, that all cuts off the screen, so we don't need to do anything. We can just draw a line there so it'll fill. And we're getting close to ink and paint problem. Yeah, everything's a problem. Ink and paint time. We're gonna have a problem here. Speaking of problems. There we go. Boom, 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 boom. So we'll zap through. Looks like that's looking pretty good. We're going to have to put in probably some more eye blinks, by the way. Oh, I just did the wrong color. Silly me. Silly, silly me. Okay. Looking at the... Hey, Maria. Okay, I don't know how long it's been since you posted that comment, but have a great day. Have a great day. And don't do anything I wouldn't do. So it's really funny. You know, I guess what I would say to those who, you know, might be curious about this sort of stuff, it's kind of interesting as we enter this sort of crowdfunding thing, how I'm feeling myself starting to put my salesman hat on. You know, I've had my artsy fartsy hat on here for months and months, and now all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I'm feeling the old salesman hat coming onto my head. And it's fun. I mean, I've always enjoyed it. Let's see here. I need the G key to sample that color right there, so that I can then hit the F key, and yeah. Okay, so I think this is that color right there. Yeah, there, 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 there. Okay, let's turn off. So we're not going to worry about lip sync at this point, but let's turn off the pencil tests completely and kind of see what we have. Okay, she definitely needs some eye blinks. But basically, so he's got a little blink there. So we're going to have to bring these guys to life with a little eye blink. And certainly it would be possible to maybe even punch it up a little bit with some plastic tool. We'll see. Okay, so one thing I'm seeing over here is that for Mel, that is definitely interesting. The blurring from cutting and pasting and moving things around actually makes it look like the outlines are darker when in fact they're actually the same color. That's kind of weird. Kind of weird. Sort of like what we were talking about, color stuff. I am going to be bold now, and I'm going to literally delete the pencil tests. There's no reason to keep them around. We've got to start dealing with the realities of this. I like how the green of her clothing brings out her eyes. See, I never would have even thought about that. Jeez, I'm glad you said that, Maria, because I don't have a clue. I truly just don't have a clue. People around here point out stuff that helps me pretty frequently. L key, what time is it? 12:04. I've been going almost exactly 2 hours. I think I will do my usual thing and stop here. I think this would be a good stopping point. Because it's kind of just boring grunt work at this point. I need to add the lip sync for both of them. And plus, I want to just take a little bit of a step back from Mel's characterization and think about it offline, because I'm not totally convinced that I didn't. Not totally convinced I've nailed it. And there's a little latitude, but like here, I want to really think about that frame. This is all tween, so it kind of goes by fast. And obviously we do have that cleanup right there to work on the back of his head. But once we land here, boy, he's got to be spot on. And he's a little fuzzy because of the redraw, or the cutting and pasting and rotating. So I'm thinking I'm going to want to take this head from an earlier shot, paste it in there, and I guess I could do that right now. Let's just grab this, Control C, and then what I'm talking about is going down to this pose, erasing his head. Yep, erasing his head, hitting the S key, hit Control V, and then basically he's going to tilt his head back. And we'll have to change the direction of his eyes, but yeah, I think that's probably better. Yeah, so obviously, again, he's looking in the wrong direction. But, yeah. So I think let's stop there and call it good for the moment. And as you guys know, there will be more later.